Hello, welcome to our workshops on the Bach cello suites. Today, in this very modest hotel room, there is a little bit of background noise, but I hope it will not bother us and that we can still go in the subject of the day, which will be the Allemande from the fourth suite. First, I want to give you a little apologize for cancelling very short term last week. Nothing dramatic, but I couldn't do the workshop and I had to postpone it. And thank you for the messages of those of you who missed it. And I will try to be again very regular in the future. Before we talk about the Allemande and then go to our guest, who is a wonderful friend and an amazing musician, Sokratis Sinopoulos, who plays the Greek Lyra, and he will tell us a little bit about this and about many other things. And before we go to this, I want to do a follow-up of the last episode, because before the last episode, I had received a question by Alessandro Mastracci, which was about tempis in general and about, but he was mentioning preludes in particular. So I wanted to, and last time, if you remember, I got carried away and I spent 30 minutes talking about the prelude from the fourth suite because I'm so, so crazy about that piece. And then there was no time to deal with that question. So here is the question from Alessandro. Hi, I'm Alessandro. I would like to know your thoughts about the tempi in Bach's cello suites, especially in the preludes. I discovered from a video of Peter Wispelwy that in one of the manuscripts, the prelude of the third suite has the marking presto. Like in some of the sonatas and partitas for violin, the point of Wispelwy was that even if Bach or Anna Magdalena didn't write any of that for a contemporary copyist, I think Kellner, it was evident that the tempo had to be presto. There aren't any similar indications in the fourth suite, but can we do a similar process of thinking and assume some information about this matter from the score? Thank you very much. Hope not to be redundant question. Not at all, dear Alessandro. And to hear your reply. So, dear Alessandro, in this matter, obviously, I'm going to give my very subjective answer. Some colleagues, and you mentioned one of my dear friends and amazing colleague, Peter Wispelwy, and who has recorded the suites already 3 times and told us on this workshop not long ago that he would like to do it 4 more times. So really, probably nobody has been grabbing for information and going into the suites more than he has. And so he's the search for tempo indications is absolutely legitimate. In my experience, before going to the preludes, I will talk about the dances. I want to enjoy and use the fact that Bach is not giving indications such as allegro, adagio, andante or something, or presto, to go at it in a much more organic way. This is the way I feel it. So talking about the dances, obviously going with the dance, how is this dance in general grooving? How could actually a body motion, because this is what Bach gives us. He gives us in fact a tempo indication by giving us a relationship between what he's composing, the sarabande, the allemande, the courante, etc., the relationship of these pieces with something that is related to dance, something that is related to how we move. So basically, I would say our best indicator, or this is the way I go at it and the way I recommend to my student, the best indicator for us, the best information, source of information for us, is our body, is how can I move on a, what gives me, what makes my body move naturally, but also dynamically, in a way that brings life to this music. I hope not to be too elusive, but and what I like about this is, first of all, that I think that the tempo, to look for the tempo this way, um, is it's going to be much more a better incarnation. So it's going to be more lively. That's what I hope. And on top of that, this is going to very naturally bring each version of this sarabande or of this Allemande, of this chorale, to be different, because everybody is also everybody. I unintentionally separated this, but everybody has a different body. So indeed, the way we are made will bring us naturally to find um, other impulses, other mood, other and also other speed. Now, about the preludes, obviously they are not dances. So some of the preludes do have a sort of dancing quality, and I think the one you mentioned, the third one, does make us feel a little bit like a courante or something in this direction. You know, it's in three, and the first and the third beat are the most decisive, let's say. So there is, everybody suggests to go in this direction, but still it's not dancing. And I think definitely there is something about all these 16th note that they carry us away. To be honest, for me, the idea of, before playing it, of to think of presto is not an inspiring one. It's one that I feel reluctant to take this for myself, because it gives a quality of something, uh, of moto perpetuo. If there is a movement that immediately comes to my mind in that could relate to presto, for example, it would be the courante from the second suite, which has this sort of uh, very dramatic quality. But so as you see already now at this point, if I start thinking about this prelude of the third suite that you mentioned, I don't feel obliged to agree with Kellner, who apparently wrote this in his manuscript. And so I would, to try to sum it up, I would personally, I would stay away from looking for these indications, and I would rather say, what is the margin, with the Spielraum in German, in which this movement or this movement could be. That obviously, if you start looking at the prelude of the first suite, which is in 4, but where the motive is half bars, you will want to have you will want this 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 to breathe. And obviously, I don't think you will have the temptation to play because you will want this breathing. If you go at it correctly, if you try to get the information that the composer gives you. So it's in 4, but the motive is half bars. So I need this half bar breathing because the composer gives it to me. That's an example. The one we discussed last time, the 4th suite. It's in this case it's in 2, and it's obviously going to the there is also in the line there is falling, and then there is a half bar feeling that is very strong, that also I find it clearly gives us an indication of where it could be. There will be variations from depending who is playing. So sorry for developing so much on this subject, but it was important to me to make a point about this, that for me, if I try to think adagio or presto or allegro, it would just not feel right. So, and now let's go to our Allemande. This Allemande from the fourth suite, like the one from the third suite, I think I told you in this workshop when we talked about the Allemande of the third suite that I had for a while, it was one that puzzled me. I had difficulty to find my story and this quite this very colorful story where a lot is happening in terms of melodic and everything. So very developed thing. And it's the same thing here with the Allemande from the fourth suite. And sometimes I remember being puzzled by how melodic and subtle the line was, so that I had difficulty to feel the pulse. And this is why I put in the title of this episode that I wanted to talk about the fact that the more the music is melodic and seemingly unvertical, you actually need to relate a lot to a bass line, which will give you this harmonic relationship to the melody, and that will help you to do your phrasing. So let me play the beginning a little bit. First of all, I want to mention that that's so nice that Bach, how he puts the relationship between this Allemande and the prelude we just said. So the prelude, as you remember, it's only arpeggios going down, these falling arpeggios. And here we are going to have scales. So not arpeggios, but of course we are going to visit the same line that we had in the prelude. So in this first bar, it's very clear how basically it's an ornamented version of our prelude. So let's play a little bit. So already in this seemingly very simple presentation of the theme of what this Allemande is going to be, I need as a player to feel that my bass line is going to be half bars, and I'm going, and this groove of the bass line is going to be represented in my timing and in my contact with the sound. So, and what I mean, I don't need to repeat this, I will do it very quickly, that what it gives us is that you should play your line as if a friend of yours was playing this bass line there. So you sure, please play now E flat. So this knowing, being conscious of this bass note allows me to be in contact at the moment of this bass note and be freer and swing in between. This is a good example here. You know, these after the A flat, the three next note, they can just be free. We can fly, and that's what we are looking for when we play. By the way, it's a beautiful sequence there. So another example of this, actually a very important one. For years, I didn't know how to play the next passage, which is only 16th notes for 2.5 bars, and not only 6 but they go a bit like if they were going around themselves and not knowing where to go. So I intentionally now played them like something that would just be a line to show you how problematic it is, because then one could think, well, maybe Bach wasn't such a good melodist after all. But actually, if you marry this with a virtual bass line, suddenly it makes a lot of sense, particularly the relationship between the fourth beat and the next downbeat, which seem to be the same but have a totally different function because they are on different beats and because the bass note underneath is another one. So the ambiguity of what seems to be the same thing and how it is totally transformed by the implied bass note is, I find, then it becomes particularly good music and particularly interesting. Now we come here to a wonderful bass line, a long rising bass line. So we have had almost a whole octave of a rising scale in the bass, and Bach he illustrates it by a dialogue between the voices, that every uneven bass note is going to be played from above, you remember, and then from the bass note, which is more reassuring and less expressive. Next one, again from above, the reassuring one from the bass note, again from above, and then here we expect from the bass, because he created this how do you say this this habit that we have as a listener, that we go from once from above, once from below, once from above, once from below, from above, below, again from above, and that way he creates this long line. After we start like this, like this, and then we go on by going every time from the upper note, from this more expressive one. I play again the passage. Cadenza. I mean cadence, I mean but hello E flat major. We say, we remember we are actually in a piece which is in E flat major. And now the actual cadence that finishes the first part. The second part, we start with the same line. We revisit our E flat major, which is our key, and then we start going to a longer C minor section from above. So for the key of C minor, he created more drama by a cascade of scale coming from the upper note and to the cadence. And now he's going to be quite inventive in the next passages. We now come to what I call a passage of beatbox, where virtually in this passage, by having this I think if he had this piece on the cembalo, there would be in the bass line a bass that is sort of repeating the same note, to just create rhythm. And in the chord that we have, is named the Napolitan, where the E flat, the A, excuse me, the note A is brought down to A flat. And here I want to answer a question by Krishan, a colleague cellist, who asked me about this bar, whether I was rather for A natural or A flat, because some people. So, and my answer is, for me, absolutely very clear. The A natural is a no-go. This, in the manuscript of Magdalena, is A flat, and and I find the A flat much more interesting. So when I would start considering, did Anna Magdalena forget or something? But in this case, she cannot have forgotten, because 3 notes later, she writes A natural here, which she wouldn't need to do if the A flat before, if she had thought about an A natural before. So there are 2 reasons that prove that it should be A flat. Plus, I find what's interesting, the whole point now about this A flat, is the very expressive relationship between the A flat and the F sharp. And you lose this if you anticipate, so to say, the A natural. So this I'm very convinced about. In this passage, don't do like I did for years when I was not enough aware of my bass line, where I lost a bit which the important beats are, and I started to think. I know probably you dear colleagues out there would never do this, but I did it for years. I was at this passage not aware that that this is that these are the strong beats. Again, a long line. Now it's interesting. He takes the motif, remember, that we have in bar 3. So here he starts using this motif, but then he creates a longer phrase with it. The bass is more active. And then again from above, not from below. Everything from above, and you feel that from the moment he, instead of presenting the bass line like from the moment he always plays a note of the harmony which is not the bass note, immediately it gets more lyrical. Okay, now we reached again our bass note and the passage, the actual bar 3. But because of all this lyrical passage that we had before, Bach gives us an ornamented version of this bar 3, which is much more expressive. I play for you again bar 3. now the corresponding bar at the end. And now a walking bass, the bass changing and being played to bring order because of all after all this very expressive passage. Now it's again the solo of the bass to say now let's bring everybody home. And the end of our very beautiful, very expressive Allemande. Thank you for listening. And now is the time where I would like to welcome my dearest friend and amazing musician, Sokratis Sinopoulos. Socrates, hello, dear friend. How are you?
Hello, Jean-Guihen.
Hello,
Thank you
hello.
for having me here, for inviting.
It's so great that you could take the time. Thank you so much. Are you in Athens right now?
Yes, I'm in
Oh,
Athens.
okay, you mentioned to me a few days ago that there might be some kind of hurricane or something, but in the end, it's not quite exactly in Athens, right?
Didn't reach Athens, but it's a messy situation in Western Greece. But it's okay. I think it's under
Okay,
control.
okay. I hope it won't be too bad. Socrates, dear Socrates, we so for our viewers, we have had I have had the privilege to meet you now quite a while ago, probably something like 15 years ago, or maybe more, maybe 18 or something. Thanks to the Shemirani brothers, and we had a wonderful project together called the Thrace Project. We made a CD together around this Thrace project to be found on Harmonia Mundi, dear, dear viewers, and um, I wanted to bring you here today, maybe to ask you basically what I've asked most of our guests here. To give us perspective on the Bach suite. So, for example, we had writers, we had actors, we had choreographer, and everything, and it was so interesting to hear how what they see, what they see in this music from where they are. And I want to ask you as an amazing improviser that you are. You are also a composer. So in this Thrace project, we play pieces that you actually compose. So this is something that, in a way, you have in common with Bach, who was an amazing improviser and while being the composer that we know. Um, and- but also, of course, an, from another universum in a way, of more Eastern seen from the Western front, more Eastern music, where instead of the word harmony, maybe one will use more the word modes. So, what can you? What are your thoughts on this? On this suite or whatever on Bach?
Thank you again for inviting, and it was really amazing to listen to you because you haven't played for a while. So I was so happy. I'm ready to start lessons with you. I have my little cello here. So I don't know if I can really give a perspective because to Bach, but maybe because the music I'm into mostly is, as you mentioned, and it's true. Let's call it the Eastern European or even Far Eastern music, Middle Eastern music, which, in terms of history, it seems to have elements, strong elements that European music worked on during the medieval times, or let's say the periods before the Baroque era. But it's very interesting to see the common things. And I'm I spent many years of my life looking at the differences of things, and I think this is part of the human nature. And of course, checking the differences is also very important for the research and for the humanity to progress. But sometimes you lose things. For example, here is a Cretan lyra, a type of the lyra played in Crete, shaped in the 20th century.
Mhm.
And this is a Thracian lyra. It's a village lyra played in northern Greece, Bulgaria, also in the villages.
Mhm.
There are other types too, and this is the instrument I'm playing, which is the lyra from Istanbul, Constantinople lyra, which is common in the Greek and Turkish musicians nowadays. And of course, everybody will ask, so what are the differences? And yes, I would reply, yes, of course, the tuning, the shape, the technique. But I think we lose the most important thing, which is that all of these instruments are this one same instrument, and they are brothers, sisters, or cousins, and they
Mhm.
share the same ancestor. So if we
Mhm.
go to music, we always talk about differences between styles or uh, Eastern Western music, which is of course true, but we lose the common things. So if we focus on the common things, of course, as you mentioned, there was always the melody there, and I can listen to the great melodies in Bach compositions, as I can listen to the melodies of compositions of people who composed music on Byzantine modes or Oriental makams or any other type of music. Of course, in the Eastern musical traditions, the chord is not there, the bass, the change of the bass is not there. We are still so strict with the drone. If there is a change, it's much, uh, of course, less changes and not. I mean, it's not the idea of working on chords, which is existing in Bach, of course, but still the melodies, the strong melodies, are there. And then another common thing, of course, is that, well, during the time of Bach, already composers have uh, gone beyond the dance. I mean, they compose on dance forms, but nobody's dancing these compositions, right?
Mhm.
While we are still playing for people to dance, but this is very very interesting for us in terms of how you treat with the rhythm, because I don't know, but of course you had dancers that you talked with, but and you spoke about the body, answering to the question of one of your uh, admirers, uh, but still having the body as also a very important part in the music. For example, when I play this music, if I'm not, usually I play this music, dance music without dancers. When I do it, I always imagine people dancing this music, and it makes, I think, it's a good idea to work like that.
Yeah,
And then
I. Oh,
as the
so
sorry,
excuse me, Socrates. No, no,
and
I
then
didn't
you
want to
mentioned
interrupt.
also the improvisation. Of course, when I listen to compositions of Bach and other, of course, great composers of that era and the previous, but especially Bach, it sounds like an eternal, very organized improvisation. For example, there are no repeats like in, I mean, improvisation compared to our improvisation, right? But everything is there, and the build up of the form and of the mode or the key is there. So I can feel and sense and listen to many uh, common things between the two traditions in
Mhm,
general.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. You mentioned it. In playing with you, what fascinated me is uh, well. Now I'm going to talk about the differences again for a moment. Was this extraordinary capacity when you were improvising to bring us to moments where, well, basically when we enjoy that there is no pulse, where it's just the melody and just the colors and the textures, and you take it, and then you would start um, something that would be very rhythmical, where the drone, as you say, would start sort of giving us a sense of rhythm and dancing, and so strong and so compelling. So. which is indeed in a way, so one has the feeling it's a bit less intricate, these two things, the timelessness and the rhythm, than in, for example, this Allemande, where it's like, um, he, it's a piece where he talks, where it's a very discursive one, and yet he wants the pulse and the form to be there and it's part of the discourse. So, and anyway, but I wanted to ask you. You mentioned before the show, when we were preparing for this, that you might have an example that you could play for us of a composer of the time of Bach. From where? From Greece or from another country in the
So the
region?
composer is named Prince. He was a prince actually, Dimitri Cantemir, and he was a prince of Moldova. At the time, the name of the region, Moldova and Romania, was Moldovlahia. It was part of the Ottoman Empire at the time. So the composition is noted in a form of prelude, kind of a prelude. But I'm sure that what he's trying to do is what I mentioned before. He's trying to actually compose a dance, I mean, on a dance rhythm. The rhythm is a very common rhythm in the area of all Balkans, from Romania until to Greece and Turkey and Bulgaria and all the Serbia and all these countries. And the rhythm is 7/8, 3/2/2, 3/2/2, which is a very common rhythm. And I think it's a great example because it's one of the few but very important examples of composers of the Eastern traditions. It's exactly, actually, he lived at this exactly, almost exactly the same time with Bach. And who knows, he was a diplomat too. So I mean, let's imagine that they even met somehow. I have There are no records of his travels, but he was traveling a lot, and I'm sure they were aware of what was going on, because if you look at the map, it's really very close. I mean, it's Moldova. It's like, I mean, people were traveling also. I mean, it was a different time. Uh, so
Yeah, yeah. So could you play a little bit of this music that Bach might have heard?
how much time do you have? Is it because it's 4 minutes, and I can
Oh, it's
make it,
perfect. It's perfect.
and I can start with an improvisation,
Oh
and then
yes.
also the mode that this dance is composed seems to me and other people who study the makams and the Eastern modes that it it has been influenced by the main Western European music, because it combines microtonality with, but ending on a very minor scale, which sounds very, very uh, European, Western European. So
Fantastic.
I go. Let me fix the camera to have a better view. Okay. No. So. a couple of other
Socrates.
parts too, but it may take long. So
Thank you so much, Socrates. Unfortunately, yes, that will be these amazing notes will be, so to say, the ending words of this. But thank you so much. I'm so grateful that you played something for us and that you were there.
thank you, Jean-Guihen. Thank you.
Socrates, thank you so much. Everybody, see you next week. Next week I'll be at home, so it will be a bit more comfortable. And we will talk about the courant from the fourth suite. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe and healthy, and all the best. Bye bye.